Call the meeting to order. Time and place is advertised February 3rd, 2025. Lewiston City Council work session. Our first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us for reciting the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next order of business is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor. In consideration of others wishing to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And while we're waiting, did Councilor Klein check in? Record?
There we go. I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank you, Councilor. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, we don't have any citizens in attendance tonight, from the public anyway. So we're probably just going to move quickly through that part of the agenda. Next item is Roman numeral 4, discussion items. Please note that identifying an item as an action item does not require the City Council to vote on that item. Item A, deferred maintenance update. This is an update on deferred maintenance from staff as requested at the December 2nd, 2024 City Council meeting. This is an action item, and I'd like to turn it over to Councilor Forsman for some opening comments, and then we have our Community Development Director, Shannon Grow, with us here today that can help us answer any questions or maybe help ferret some information out. We can talk about some future direction from here. So Councilor Forsman.
So my intent by bringing this again to the table was to see what projects we finished, what projects still need to get done, how much money do we need to complete all of those projects. With budgets season, not budget season, but we have a while before budget comes up, but it's always good to be prepared and really having an idea of where we want our money to go and how we're gonna plan our budget for the next year. And so I think it's important that we understand the challenges ahead, and deferred maintenance on our building or on our buildings is definitely a challenge that we're facing. And to just kind of figure out how much money do we need to put in that fund to start checking things off the list. Is there grants available? What kind of options do we have as a council to start making movements so we're no longer having a continued long list of deferred maintenance? And if we don't start actioning them, it's just going to get bigger. So that was my intent of bringing this forward. I talked back and forth with the Shannon Girl quite a bit on stuff, and we brought a lot of pricings and ideas, and I think that hopefully we'll have a pretty meaty discussion to be able to come up maybe some action plans. So I don't really have any more on that if you want to take over.
Sure. Hey, good afternoon, Council, Mayor. Shannon Grow. I'm the Community Development Director for the city, as well as the Interim Parks Director, and that's why you're seeing me here for this discussion. As Councilor Forsman talked about at the December work session, the City Treasurer, Amy Gordon, gave a presentation of what projects have been done with the assigned building fund and what the balance was. And the balance was a little bit over $5 million. And so Council Forsman asked the staff to come back with what are still the needs in the city, and kind of like, can we have a discussion about that and see where we want to go? So that brings us to today. We have, for those of you who were not here before, there is kind of a master list. There's no facilities master plan that the city has. And so staff has done their best just to kind of compile needs as they come up. We put prices to them. A lot of them are estimates. They're either based on something else we have done. So for example, you may recall that at the last council meeting, there was an HVAC system for the community center that was bid out. And low bids came in at $212. That's the number one project on your list, because I said I'd be bringing it back today. Those types of projects can help us understand what the needs are. But again, these Excel spreadsheets are kind of the best that we have done to put together the needs list and bring them to your attention so that you could fund them if you wish. This list that I put with the packets today is not the main list. The main list is $12 million worth of repairs. What we try to do is pare that down a little bit for you for today to say, these are the urgent needs that we're facing right now. You will see that there is a rating, so where we have made changes to this list as opposed to what maybe you have seen in the past, is that we are kind of putting buildings together, but priority is in here. Priority 1 is an urgent need, priority 2 is a high need, and priority 3 is definitely a need that will need to be done in the next couple of years. We've also taken these projects, if you will, and we have 2 columns. One's a CN estimate, that's for construction, and the other's a DN estimate, and that's for design. Typically, those will be structural designs based on what it is, though. If it's an HVAC system, you might have an HVAC mechanical engineer look at that. This obviously is not the exhaustive list. This is a snippet again. And the fire station 1, 2, and 4 look a little bit different than the rest of them because they are many projects wrapped into one. So what we attempted to do was take the projects from the mitigation plan that was done in 2020. And the reason why they're not showing as separate projects here is because you most likely will have a rolling domino effect. You couldn't just pick off a couple of small projects within those because, for example, if you were to do the HVAC systems, is it possible to pull out all the HVAC systems of these? Maybe, but if you were to change the envelope of the building, you're gonna have to redo it. And so that is why those are much kind of broader projects, is because we took the prices and estimated the design at 20% of those project costs that were estimated through the consultant that did the mitigation plan. And Chief Reitmeyer is here if you have specific questions about the fire stations. The other reason I want to point out of why we have DN estimates on this is that these are public buildings. So much like in the commercial world, they do require design professionals. If there's going to be members of the public within these buildings, they must be designed through a design professional. Oftentimes that's going to be, like I said, a structural engineer. So you can see the bottom here where we've lined out projects and then come up with 2 different totals, $900,000 in construction estimates and then $758,000 in design. And so today, what is we're presenting this today. I think there are several probably questions, and then there's hopefully some direction to staff of moving forward on some of these projects and using them for the assigned building fund. Like I said last week, the community center HVAC, I'll reiterate that what the city budgets for facility maintenance needs is $130,000 per year. The last 2 years, the council has given an additional $250,000. But as we talked about last week, this one HVAC unit with the design and the construction is just about $250,000. So that's gonna wipe that out. And so that's why we are asking that we can use the assigned building fund to pay for that HVAC system as it is appropriate for that fund. And like I said, I can attempt to answer any questions you may have, and Chief Reitmeyer is here as well.
Councilors, questions for Director Grow? Councilor Spicklemeyer?
I like the list you had up there. It's kind of a shame that we have $750,000 worth of stuff and nothing is done. We just get a design, right?
Well, the design is done.
Yeah.
I mean, and what the design does is it gives you, the reason why I put unknown is that they are simply unknown. I would hate to put a number there and you know, 2 years from now say, that was gonna cost us $2 million. Well, I have no idea, right? The design will tell you what that is. We do that in roads too. We kinda know, but for the most part, the design tells you what it is. And then bids, of course.
It was more of a comment than a,
Sure,
you know.
sure.
But follow up?
Counselor.
Actually, I had another comment for the chief, and I don't know, Reitmeyer, if you can answer it. And I don't know for Counselor Wright, there's a big report that was done for the fire stations, and we've been working on this for quite a while, so you might want to see that report, but.
Yes.
So, Chief, I'm curious, the work we had done last year, we had a lot of mitigation work done because of the diesel particles or whatever they called it, particulates. But the main cause of it, wasn't it that our ventilation system in shops wasn't adequate or wasn't functioning correctly?
Thank you. Greg Reitmeyer, Fire Chief. We had, last year, the process began that the council said, okay, we were gonna build a fire station. We decided not to build a fire station. What do we need to do? And we knew that we had diesel particulate matter contamination at Station 4 at the airport. And that's from the years of the exhaust systems not even being there. And then we had exhaust systems put in that actually hooked to the tailpipes of the vehicles. And so in order to know what we should do to clean it, we had an industrial hygienist come in and test for that diesel particulate matter, which is a known carcinogen. And they were here. It didn't cost a lot of money to have them. It was another, I think, $500 to have them test the other stations. So we're like, well, let's test all the workplaces. And when they tested those workplaces, unfortunately, we found that all the stations still had contamination in them. And so we developed a multi-phased approach to getting an engineer to come in and tell us what is it that we're going to have to do, and then start mitigation of that. And the mitigation was frankly a simpler task. It's you can check. We cleaned them and painted them. And so we did that process. Unfortunately, at the same time we got that engineering report back, that gave us a massive, you can see that, just a massive. And the three things that these lists go after is cancer reduction, so carcinogen reduction and prevention, and then cardiac health prevention, and also neurocognitive health prevention. The things that we know in the fire service now that they impact and cause negative health effects. And so the engineering gave us what's called a rough order of magnitude. And so those numbers that you guys got, I believe it was back in June when I gave that report. The rough order of magnitude in the construction world, it can be plus or minus 50%. It really is. They're trying to say, well, we think it might cost this much. Like Director Groh was saying, we have to put that in roads too, because you just don't know until you get into something what it's really going to be. So that next step is exactly what Director Groh has identified here, is we have to get it designed. Even if we said, if you guys had said from the rough order of magnitude numbers, go for it, Chief, get it done. Here's your money. The next step is design. And so that's really where we're at in a roundabout way. We do have the risk manager has another industrial hygienist coming out to test air quality again. We're really gonna get a feel for, is the problem still being created, or was off-gassing from the dirty walls a big part of the problem? And so we should know that. They're testing in 2 weeks, and I took about a month before to get those data numbers back.
So is that up there where it says upgrading existing building ventilation, that will take care of the issue of the smoke?
That would address that one piece of all three of those hazards. However, like Director Groh said, you say, okay, we're gonna fix the ventilation system, and the engineer, the HVAC engineer said, you gotta change this, this, and this. But you also have to seal off the envelopes from the dirty side to the clean side. And when you do that, you're gonna have to move a bunch of ductwork around, fire sprinklers around. So it's this, plate of spaghetti. When you start tugging on one string, the whole plate moves. I'm not going far.
Okay.
The rating ones on this list, is this all of the number ones?
Yeah, for now. So these are the ones that are kind of the known urgent needs. Yes.
And I mean, because you said this was shrunk down, this
Yes,
list,
so
but
the
this
other-
shrunk list contains all the ones of the overall.
Yeah, that is my understanding, yes. So the other list is also here, but it's really big. Yeah. So I asked the facilities maintenance manager to pull out what she believed were the urgent needs. Yeah. And then, of course, as everyone knows, at even your own house, sometimes you don't know it's an urgent need till it's an urgent need. And so things break and we have to repair them.
Councilor President Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I guess I just kind of want to point out that the money that we have in our building fund, what's left of it, because it was up at about $7 million at one point in time, that was intended for a new fire station. We've been squirreling that money away, and, you know, I was gone when I was ill and decisions were made that we decided apparently we weren't gonna build a new fire station. I just want everybody to know that that money, if we choose to turn around and spend it on this, we'll be behind the eight ball by far when it comes to addressing the Station 4 replacement. And I firmly believe that station needs to be replaced. I mean, it's for many factors, not big enough, it's on leased land. We do have a piece of property, we just don't have enough money. But I just want to caution the council that to keep that in the back of their mind, that there is a bunch of money sitting there that we could be using for everything on this page and other things that we have in the city. Or do we want to keep a chunk of that change set aside for the inevitability of replacing one of our fire stations? So.
Thank you, Council President Kleberg. Let me just add on to it. So my understanding is that over the last 3 years, yes, we continue to put money in that account for the fire station. So I think the original intent was to cash flow that fire station, pay cash flow.
It was.
And over time, as things became more and more expensive, we can't pay cash for it. It's just, we can't catch up to it. You know, it's just too expensive. And I think that was probably part of the decision that the councilors made at the time, whether it was consciously or unconsciously made, but that things were just getting too expensive. And then, of course, we had some differences of opinion, whether that was a good location or not. Moving forward, the council would have the option, I'm not sure that we'll ever have enough cash just to pay for a fire station, but certainly to bond for that. And so, so I think we can still build the station if we need to somewhere, but paying cash for it, I think, is going to be the challenge. In the meantime, you know, every time we make a decision to do one thing, it means we make a decision not to do another. And so over the years, we've chosen not to address some of these deferred maintenance needs. And so this is the position we find ourselves in today. And so that's not to argue with what Council President Kleberg said. It's just to say that we have a long list and a growing list of deferred maintenance and construction needs at the city. And we're going to continue to have that in the fire department and the police department. They're going to need some new digs at some point here in the future. They're outgrowing that. They need to do some things. And so, you know, at one time we talked about other options such as consolidation. You know, would that be beneficial to the city to do that? By consolidating, would we be able to surplus some properties and use those proceeds to invest either in new properties or help to pay for the consolidation? But then also from that point going forward, if we could lower our future deferred maintenance costs by doing that, because we're not trying to play catch up all the time on a lot of old buildings. So this is a small part of it. I think this is more urgent. Lists that we have, these are more immediate. When we get into the middle of the budget session, if you'd like to look at trying to put some additional monies into those assigned building funds, we can certainly look at doing that. I'm confident we'll find some money to do that. Councilor?
Question. So from what I'm understanding, and again, I'm new here, Fire Station 4, we were targeting that for complete replacement at one point in time. So how long do we have to put off these two items on Fire Station 4 if we're trying to make a decision on replacing that building or not at some point? That way, we don't lose that money, because then we sell the building and it's not used for that purpose anymore. So what kind of time frame are we looking at that these two items must be done for safety reasons?
It's a great question. So the Fire Station 4, the brief history of that, and I encourage you, the 2020 Fire Station study, when we meet later, I think this week we're scheduled, we can talk more about that. The short story is that the airport fire station, it's 50, 60 years old now. And the size of the fire truck that they used for aircraft response at the time was a smaller vehicle. And so the airport, our airport that we own part of, and at the time, I believe we owned the whole thing. Am I correct on the timeline there? The airport operations received a grant from the FAA to buy a new truck, an upgraded truck. It was far too large to fit in the station. And so at the same time, that went forward into an airport, an enhancement at the airport for a maintenance facility and a fire station. The way that all worked out, long story short, is that it was placed on the other side of the airport. So for several years, we operated by driving around the airport every time a plane was gonna land or leave, and we would staff that engine and then we would drive back. We couldn't staff it from our current location. We had to charge a fee because it started decreasing and impacting the entire staffing of the fire department. At a point, the airport, the joint board now decided, you know what, we think we can do this ourselves. We've seen some models out here where the maintenance staff were trained to be firefighters and they could do this. And so we did that about 3 years ago, that we made that transition to where now the airport staff provides that service. So the city owns half of a fire station on the airport property. It's a modern fire station. It's got all of the resources. And at some point in time, if we ever needed to staff that to, if we had growth behind the airport and stuff, then we could put a station there. What it did to our current station is it made it 50% of it irrelevant. So now you have a hole in our city because of when Station 3 was closed, it created a response hole. And Station 4 is sitting clear up here south of the station, or south of that coverage area. And that's when it was identified. This needs to move. That station needs to move and Station 1 need to move because we closed Station 3 when we acquired the orchards. All of these things changed. So that drives that station moving location. If it was gonna need to stay there and stuff, then we would be having a discussion about modernizing it and building a new station. So I think you're spot on. It's a vital question. How much money do we spend on a station we know we're gonna leave at some point in time? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? The mayor's spot on. We're gonna have to go to bond. I think we saw that with the downtown project. The engineer said, if you try to save this money, you will be behind the inflation curve the entire time. You'll never catch up. So you go out to bond, you freeze the prices when you do the work, and then you end up paying it off. And that's just kind of the boat we find ourselves in. So when council decides, hey, this is a priority, and we have a facility master plan that it's all incorporated in, it's not, the fire department's not separate from the city, it's one element of the city's needs, then that'll answer that question of how much do we invest right now to make that better, and which investments. When we get the air quality study back, I think that's gonna help direct us. Because if we know right now we have workers working every day in unhealthy air, that's gonna force our hand, right? We're gonna have to do something sooner than later. So, sorry, a little bit of an explanation, but trying to catch you up there.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman?
Yeah, back to the fire station. We got to that meeting and I think it was to the final decision that we were going to go on with the build of that fire station. And then they came back that the contractors, or proper term, with an increase, a significant increase to what was originally budgeted. And it was kind of, wasn't a lot of a heads up. Hey, we're giving this new increase. It was like, we're about to make this vote. All of a sudden, there's this big increase to what the overall project's gonna cost. That is ultimately, as far as I understand it, why council decided this is just too much. They changed the price of it overall. And now we're gonna have to come back to the drawing board and think of a different solution. I think for me, I'm only speak for me, but I think, not that that location was the worst location. I think that it definitely could have been suitable, but I am concerned about, we're gonna be in another situation where we can't expand on that area. Cause that piece of property isn't very big, so there's no getting bigger on that piece of lot. I think if we're gonna invest a lot of money into a new fire station, I'd like to see a piece of property that we have a lot of room to grow, as well as focusing on our police as well, because their station is getting really outdated as well. So how can we work that together is what I would like to see, so that we're investing, if we are going to bond, can we go to bond with a fire station / police station kind of combo that we could work out, or, you know, what kind of situation, and you maybe even make it so we have one less building to worry about, less repairs to worry about. I think that would be interesting to see if we'd be able to accomplish something like that. And I don't know, I just think that I'm concerned about the current property that we are looking at we're eventually gonna outgrow it, and then we're gonna be in this situation again. As far as everything on this list, as much as I sentiment with having the fire station, I also am concerned if we continue to just let this go, that we're just gonna be forced to make those updates instead of strategically planning. As Director Gross said, sometimes you make a plan and then it breaks, and now you're forced to make those updates. And now we're pulling money from places that we weren't expecting because we're just trying to make the repairs. Whereas if hopefully we get ahead of it, we're actually planning it, putting the money away from it, instead of last minute decision saying, I don't have the money, I gotta pull out of savings now, and now I'm getting further and further behind. That's my concern with not addressing these issues. And I think some of these, I kind of had a question on as far as like Fenton Gym, like how often are we really using Fenton Gym? Are we making investments from Fenton Gym? Is that something that we maybe want to look on getting rid of, or do we feel like we still need to keep it? Because there's a couple big repairs there that we need to address when it comes to Fenton Gym. So that would be my one question, is if Fenton Gym, if we have any data about how often we use it, is it an investment for the city to continue to have it?
So yes, I do have that information. I asked for it today and got it about an hour ago from one of our rock stars over at Parks and Rec. It's used in 2024. I just did stats on 2024, 724 times. 100 of that was for our own programs. About 200 of that was for our joint use agreements. So that'd be Boys and Girls Club, Lewiston School District. And then the rest of those were by the private sector.
Do we know how much money we're making out of that?
Yeah, we can pull revenue reports. I think what you're really saying is to the council, to your peers, is this a piece of property that we want to keep? And so then you would have a discussion on what's the profile of that piece of property, and is this something that we want to continue doing? I know in the past and perhaps soon future, there's also Boys and Girls Club has a lot of use in that building, and we have done some joint repairs, and so there might be some conversations moving forward with Fenton Gym. And so today's discussion could be, you know, we are interested in funding these. We're gonna park Fenton or some other projects until we have some other information.
Yeah.
So you could do that kind of thing too.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind putting Fenton aside just until we know, like, how much are we actually making by bringing back those numbers? How much are we making by having Fenton Gym? Is it really an investment for us? And then deciding, okay, now is it worth putting the money towards repairing? Or maybe there's other partners that we have using that would be willing to partake in some of those repair costs, saying, hey, this is where we're at. We want to keep it, but we're falling behind on the 8 ball. You know, maybe we can get some investors there. That would be my thought for that. And then how about the Carnegie Library?
Carnegie Library is at Pioneer Park. And we have a lease agreement with the Montessori School for that building. So it is one of the city's properties.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you, Councilor Forsman, just if we have 700 rentals and it's a 2-hour minimum, not everybody uses it for 2 hours, and it's $30 an hour is the rental fee, I think, on that. That comes up to $42,000 a year, so it's not a lot of money.
How much does it cost to keep it going?
Well, the electricity's probably.
Of electricity. And some of this isn't just a numbers game, right? Some of it is policy. Some of it is does the city want to have that type of facility open to the public? Once the city doesn't own it and somebody else owns it, will they still have that open to the public? We don't know. If the city were to want to sell that piece of property, as we all know, you have to go through the surplus and then a public auction. We can't just sell it.
Councilor Schroeder?
Oh, thank you. Now, bring my mind back. Can we get a deal on an HVAC systems? I mean, how many?
Our bids last.
I mean, can we make a deal for multiples at one time? Anyway, 5 or 6.
We need 20. 20.
Bring them
What kind of
in.
a deal will you make?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, the question, going back to Chief. So I know back when, we talked about we had to do mitigation work in order to sell these properties. I mean, Station 4. Right? Yes, it's Station 4. That we were looking at possibly not using because we're going to build the other one. So if we are looking at selling that property or vacating it anyway, would some of these things still be needed to mitigate, to surplus it? I think the concrete sinkhole, the sinkhole probably would need to be fixed, certainly, if it's in the driveway. But are there, the other things need to be actually mitigated before we would vacate it?
I think that it's a good question. The answer is, it's not my expertise. I think that there's a real estate question. I think it's going to be a complicated, we had discussions about whether or not IT would use that as a server farm, since it had, we were having fiber optic put there and stuff. Did the city want to retain that since it's on leased land? So we pay a lease agreement every month to have that there. I don't know how you sell a building that you own on leased land and how that real estate transaction takes place. I think anytime, if you or I were gonna sell a building, there's some obligation that the buyer may have to, in the negotiation of the purchase and sale agreement of, hey, I want you to do this before I'm gonna buy it. I really don't know how that works when we're surplusing public property and going through the auction process, if we can do as is. Sorry, I don't want to speak unintelligently to that.
I was just mainly going back to the things that I think you've already mitigated, the carbon in there and painted over. So those mitigations are done, is that
It's
correct?
correct. It's been cleaned and painted. So the diesel particulate matter that was adhering to the walls and the floor and everything have been cleaned up. The question now is the vehicle exhaust system, the station exhaust system, and the HVAC system continuing to spread the chemicals throughout the building? And in 5 years, are they going to be dirty again? I don't have the answer to that. We'll know more again when this next test gets done.
Thank you.
Councilor Spicklemeyer?
Mayor, and I agree 100% about the pit and gym thing. I think we really need to look at its future, along with Berlin's pool. They're right there together. But the pool liner, is that something that can't be? It must be done now, or is it something that could be projected out if the city's really? A lot of things. I'm going to the Parks and Rec committee meetings all the time, and they're talking about, a singular pool in the community park. And, do we turn back the Orchards pool to
LOID.
Lloyd? There's a lot of things. It's like, do you keep putting money into something that's not gonna be there?
Well, I will say that, Orchards is the only pool open, that will be open this summer. If you were to buy it, and I just found out this morning that price is actually $221, not $195 as I had earlier when I put this packet together. It takes a long time to build out community park and build a pool. So I would say you're leaking water, you probably need to put this pool liner
So
in.
it's an urgent thing.
Counselor Forsman?
So I'm reading for the library, it says new roof is leaking, getting abatement and roof patch, add roof drain under and roof ladder on west wall to avoid damage. So when it says new roof, how new are we talking?
When the library was taken over by the city and the whole construction was done for the library.
Okay, so that's. Anybody know how old that is?
10 years.
10 years?
7 to 10.
No, it's about 10.
Okay. Reason I was asking that is just, if my mind knew was like, well, we just got it built, why aren't they coming in and fixing this problem? So that's why I wanted to get an idea, like, what does new mean?
Sure.
Because, I mean, I think 10 years is an average time that repairs would probably need to start being done on a roof. 10 to 15, I would think, no longer, I don't know.
A roof should be
Well, I
about
had
30
mine for
years.
over 30 and we put a new one on.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is a lot different than a house.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious from
Complicated
when they
systems.
constructed it, like what, it seems, I don't know, seemed like, did they do something wrong? And that's why we're having it leak so soon? Like, I mean, I don't know if it really matters at this point, but it's just, if we could go back to the original design and be questioning, hey, why is this already leaking? We've only had it for 10 years. Is would be my concern. But my other question, so follow-up question, Mayor. How much are we looking at just to start getting, design professionals and these estimates? What's the kind of initial cost that we're gonna be looking at for that?
Well, typically, depending on the level here, you can either go off a roster if it's below a certain amount. So for example, if we know that a design would be under 50,000, or we really believe it's gonna be under 50,000, then we can choose from a roster. If it's gonna go over 50,000, you have to go through a bid process. And what happens with design is that you look for qualifications and then you look at the bids. So they're not low bids, if you will, they're more qualification based.
Okay.
Council President Kleberg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that, I guess, follow up on the library roof, might, has anybody done any looking into who the contractor was when they were doing the upgrade on it? Because 10 years, even on a flat roof, seems pretty short to me to be having these kind of problems.
I know that the library director is hot after that. I mean, she does her homework. And so
Good.
I can't speak for her, but she and I met less than a week ago and we talked about that and sent some other items. So I feel pretty confident that she's running this to the ground.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Counselor?
So for my direction on the library then, I would think is similar to the vet and gym where we kind of table that one again to kind of figure out.
I wouldn't do that. I mean, it is a need. I don't believe 10 years later, we can go back and say, hey, you didn't design this properly. We accepted that building. So it's not something that we can go back and say, this wasn't done properly. You have to do that when you accept the building. And this is an urgent need at the library.
My curiosity though, if the mayor's saying she's looking into it,
I think, Dan, if you don't mind, it has been like, what is the issue here? And it has been looked at over the last couple of years. It's not something though that we can just say, well, we're gonna investigate this and go after somebody else for it. It needs to be done. You can do both at the same time, but this needs to be done. Does that make sense?
They've been trying to find the leak for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard to
Sometimes they run,
And that's why that is an unknown and needs a design professional because,
figure
yeah.
out where it's at.
Right.
I see.
So I would not recommend that, but certainly that's your decision to make.
Yeah, well, I misunderstand that too, so I'm glad you clarified, because in my mind, I was thinking like, she's maybe talking to someone, or she's working things out, and we're gonna be like sneaking and doing, but,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
So counselors, I'm just gonna throw it out there. If we want to keep making progress on our deferred maintenance list from the conversation that I've heard so far. Counselor Klein, do you have a comment for us?
No, people are pretty much asking questions that I would have asked.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like, counselors, you do have the option here. There's a rating table if you have it in front of you. Rating 1's are the most immediate needs. 2 is next down the line, but that's inside Fenton Gym, which one counselor would like to hold off on that for now. And then the cemetery, I guess, is also a number 2. But we have several here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 projects that have a rating of 1, which are of a high need at this time. So if you'd like to work on these, you could make a motion to have staff move forward on those.
Mayor, can we make maybe a motion or something to say we all agree with the Fenton Gym? I just want to ensure everybody's okay with us putting that one aside for now and not focusing on it at the current time.
Counselor, if you want to ask your fellow counselors, they'll tell you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we are all good for Fenton Gym later table?
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Klein?
On that one, I'm worried about an actual leaking roof. It's currently leaking. I don't want it to get worse and then we have issues later on.
That's the number. So there's 3 projects with Fenton Gym, and the first one is the metal roof. The reason why we put 2 and 3 on the next 2 is because you wouldn't want to do these other ones until you fix that roof.
Correct. But leaking, that $350,000 got to be replacing,
Yeah, that's a
not
repair.
repairing.
That, I mean, so Fenton Gym is a pretty
Yeah.
unique property. It's got half of a slanted roof, then it's got 2/3 of it is a flat roof, but you also have topography around that building. It's a very complicated job. And that's why it's so high.
Maybe then to change it to possibly get a repair estimate for Fenton Gym.
Is that a repair estimate or a replacement of roof?
I believe that's a major repair, which turns into a replacement. It's been an issue for a very long time.
Mayor?
Counselor?
I think definitely in order for us to kind of really get an idea of what this is gonna cost us, what should we start chipping away is get the unknowns out of the way, right? And start figuring out actual costs to these, because a lot of these we don't really know, correct? We're just kind of guesstimating. For me, I would like to start getting estimates and design professionals and start getting those numbers so that we can then start prioritizing which ones we want to focus on based on that. And then as well, what my intent, as I emailed this about to you, Director Grow, was how do we, because, like Fleet, they have it budgeted and they have, I don't know, what do they call it, maintenance?
Replacement rates?
Yeah, so they know when they should be getting something done, replacing. I would like to see going forward is how can, as a city, initiate something like that for our buildings so that we don't get to this, our new council years from now doesn't get to the same situation and they're sitting here going, all these repairs, here we are again. So for me, I would like to walk out of here and give direction to staff as, let's start getting estimates going and how much really is it gonna cost us to start chipping away at this list? And then what are we gonna do to create action plans or have it on a rotation so that we start knocking these out and then getting caught up and never having this happen again? Does that
Right,
make sense?
so
that's
my
what I'd like to see.
answer to Councilor Forsman when we were doing the back and forth was that internally staff has talked about, building profiles of each of these buildings and, what types of systems exist in each one of them, because they're all unique, right? What are the years of the HVAC systems? What are the pipes? What does all of this look like? And then you somewhat establish a rate. What is the use? Those types of things. But what we also talked about was, with a $12 million list, you're not starting at zero. So that's great for the future, but you're not starting at zero. So you kind of have to invest in both.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say, and this is my plug, again, you can see just in this small list, you have $758,000 of estimated design work to do. Something that would be very helpful, and I'm going to be bringing this to the council during the budget, is the possibility of getting a structural engineer on staff. And the reason why I say that is because we don't have anybody on our team that can really vet these out. These are high-level estimates. We're doing the best we can based on what we know, but we don't know what we don't know. And a structural engineer may not do these big ones, right? But they could project manage those. They can answer these questions that Greg and I have about, well, can you do this piece of it? And then, what is the proper phasing of this? With this cold mix shed, same thing up at the service center. It's just so unknown. What is the best strategy to work towards? And it's hard to get these, when you fund these, that's great. It's slow going. We're at the mercy of their business and what they can do, their capacity. And so having somebody on board, I think this small list highlights that. At least it does for me. So, but yes, if you wanted to, what I hear you're saying, if I may, is to fund the unknowns, as in fund the design elements for everything in Category 1 from Orchard's Pool to up. And then, if I may, we pay for this HVAC unit from the community center out of the assigned building fund. And then, in addition, the $20,000 for the sinkhole and the Orchard's Pool liner. These other ones, Fenton down, we have a little bit of time on. And something, if we shift the HVAC unit, then we could possibly check off some of these smaller ones with our regular budget, such as, well, we wouldn't do Fenton necessarily, but we could do the cemetery HVAC unit, for example.
Councilor Forsman?
How quickly will we know kind of an estimate of what we're gonna be overall paying for the unknowns? So once we.
Estimate of the design or estimate of the construction?
Well, right, we have to pay for the design, so how much for the design part, and then,
Yeah.
coming back and being like, okay, here's what the design was, now this is what it's gonna cost to build it.
Yes, these smaller ones we can pick off pretty quick. Anything over 50, we have to do formal type bids. So we would work towards those, and that process takes a few months.
Yeah, so we'll have an idea though, how much we're kind of chipping out away at this fund if we make this decision,
Yeah.
before we're like, oh no, we didn't realize we were gonna spend $500,000, not just throwing numbers out there, but just making sure that we're actively aware of what's going on with that would be my only concern.
Yeah,
I see-
I think
I
what
see
we would do is we would say, look, if these smaller ones, 50,000 and smaller, but these big ones, if we are way off, then yeah, we would probably most likely, we could come back to the council and say, okay, we did our due diligence, we went to design professionals, we were way off, this is what it's gonna cost you for a design.
Sorry, Mayor.
Councilor Forsman?
You were talking about structural engineer hired into staff slash kind of manager,
Yes.
project manager kind of.
Yes.
What would that, they would do the design then, right?
They
Would
could
that
do-
eliminate having to bid out designs?
Yes, so any of these smaller ones, in theory, right? Any of these smaller ones could be done in-house, prioritized by staff and council. These bigger ones, maybe not so much, but definitely we'd be ahead of the curve, as in we would know more going into these.
Right, so my lead up to that was that we're gonna obviously be, I don't know how much a engineer for that, I don't know how much an average person to pay for that, what kind of pay would that would be for them. But my thought is even with that, are we gonna maybe save money by having someone in-house that we're not having to constantly go out to bid, right?
Yeah.
So like, are we gonna have a cost saving, return on investment by just hiring someone internally versus constantly?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this
outsource?
number right here, 758,000, we're not paying that. Just so people know, we will not be paying 758,000 for a structural engineer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Because I mean, it might be worth, that's probably could be a discussion that we could look forward and coming the budget is like, hey, is this gonna save us money by having someone in-house starting to chip away at these versus constantly having to bid them out?
The other thing
That's my
that,
concern.
for sure, the other thing that I would have a structural engineer do is shepherd the facility master plan process. They're gonna know a whole lot more going into that kind of process, and can, very much, give suggestions, but that structural engineer could also help with what we're talking about with the, what do you do to, have your replacement rates? That's what that person could do too. There's a lot of work to be done, for sure. But yes, I do believe there would be cost savings in the long run, for sure. We would be putting a better foot forward with this stuff. Again, staff knows what we know, and this is not my forte, and neither is it with anybody else on staff. I mean, we have engineers, they're civil engineers, though. They design roads and those types of things.
Right.
The other thing I would, just a reminder of, we talked about this in our, when we were putting this together, is that this fund, the assigned building fund, was funded at about 1.65 million a year until about 2 years ago. Then the council decided to shift that to transportation. As you know, there's many needs around the city. Transportation is a big need. Dustin's gonna be back February 24th with the capital, or the CIP list for transportation, and it's massive. And I think that was a big factor in shifting those funds. But shifting those funds, like the mayor said, we still have these issues. So we need to invest in.
Councilor
Sorry,
Forsley.
go ahead, I'll let Speckmeyer
Councilor
go.
Speckmeyer?
So looking at the list, what we highlighted there before, which is close to, we'd be approving close to $1 million.
Sure, I can add those up.
So while you're doing that,
Okay.
if you look at, it's gonna cost us $250,000 on an engineering. If those get done, to get them done, we're looking at probably $2.5 to $3 million to complete those projects we had engineered. So that's our unassigned building fund.
Oh, I know.
To complete them.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Councilor Speckmeyer, 1 minute. I'll get to you next.
No, Klein.
Or Councilor Klein, sorry, one
Okay,
one
thanks.
second.
Why are you yelling there?
So on the Fenton Gym, it's just getting a bid at this point, isn't it? It's not like we're not committing to spending $350,000. We still need bids on this, and once we get bids, it still has to be approved by us, right? So it's not like if we continue on the Fenton Gym roof path, we're not committing to that amount of money, correct?
Correct. We could do that. We could get a bid on Fenton Gym. That is correct. Jenny, if you can hear me, I don't have control of this keyboard, so yes, thank you. Can you add the 195 plus the 20,000 at the top there? Yep, that one plus that one, correct, and hit enter. And then we're gonna add about 20,000 to that. So it'd be 220 plus 678, about $1 million, yep.
So my point was that at this million though, the other things that we're getting the engineering package on, we're gonna be at 2 to 3 million to accomplish them.
Yeah, so these are 20%, these estimates here are 20% of the estimates from the engineers for the mitigation plan.
Councilor Wright?
Yeah, so the only one, when we talked about which ones to go ahead with on the list, so the only one, up at the top in the one priorities is that Fire Station 4 renovation / repairs. That one I'd like to better understand, how quickly are we looking at replacing this location? Because if that's gonna happen, then like I said earlier, I would prefer not to invest in something if we're gonna move away from it quickly enough. But that does depend on, as the fire chief said, those tests that are gonna come back, because safety's important.
I think the answer to that is twofold. The one about the air quality test, and the other thing was moving forward with a master facilities plan. Because if we've identified we need to bond things, the council's got to look at all the competing priorities of the city and what needs to be funded, what the taxpayers weigh in on are the priorities. And then, yeah, then you have to just, finally, you have to draw a line and say, okay, if it's less than 5 years, yes. If it's greater than 5, no. I can tell you that the firefighters that work there have been listening to, we're gonna do this since the 2008 to 10 timeframe. And the library came up, community park came up, and we've continually pushed this down the road. And so that the costs just keep going up. That's the hard part. I mean, if we had a time machine, we'd go back and we'd say, back when it was $3.9 million, we'd have built it. And not when it became $8.1 million and we all went, what?
I kind of would like to know too, if we're looking at how to fund these and getting creative, right? I'm not the greatest, obviously, at grants, right? Because that's not my job. But I'd be curious to know, for our grant writer, like, are there grants that we could be looking at with these kinds of updates? Or if there's not, then maybe when we come close to budgeting, should we not take back, but reallocate funds from the roads back into the building fund to start chipping away at these? And because I know you can get grants on road projects, you know, I don't know if you can get grants when it comes to just keeping up with city infrastructure.
It kind of depends on what it is, but yes, oftentimes if it's deferred maintenance, it's a no-go. When we replace the lights at the library, though, that's a good example of, yes, you can get some grants depending, that was an energy grant.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of doing energy grants for some of these HVAC systems? Possibly. Getting them designed, though, gives us a way better number to go after those grants.
Yeah, that's the constant thing I'm hearing, is that's kind of your first step to try
Yeah.
to fight for those grants and
Yeah,
say
for
why you
sure.
really need them.
Oftentimes you look a lot better if you've put something into it.
Yeah. And I think too, once that we're coming for a budget and we're trying to decide where to put money, knowing that is really gonna help too, because we're gonna be able to say, okay, we know that getting grants on these projects is probably next to none, but we know, because I feel like we're playing a battle between our infrastructure for the city and our building infrastructure, right? And so we're kind of, who do we pay attention to more, who gets more money? And I think this will really help us as a council decide, like, okay, let's take away from our road funds and not take away, but let's start allocating more into our building reserve fund to build that back up, check some of these off, and then really fight just to get grants for our infrastructure, for roads, sidewalks type projects. You know, just kind of which one are we gonna be more likely to get grants on, till we know where to allocate our funds taxpayer funds that we have to kind of play with. Is what I would like to see us as a council coming into this budget season, start really thinking about how we're gonna do that and where we should really be putting this money and how we're gonna chuck away at this list. I don't think checking away at this list is just draining that fund. I don't think that's the best solution, because then now we're just having it as, I totally agree with Counselor, why am I speaking? Cleaver. I don't usually do that. That we need to be careful, right? We're not just draining it, now we're having to build back up, and when a piece of property comes up for sale, maybe that we feel is totally worth it, and we want to put it now, we don't have any money to kind of put money to the table. So I think we need to be careful on how we spend that money in there, but I definitely think we should start thinking about putting more money in there so that we can start getting away at this list.
Councilor Spickelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess kind of follow up on that, I guess as a comment to Counselor.
That guy.
This one.
Is that I agree with you, you know, and I know you've brought it up many, many times.
Oh, yeah.
Your concerns about this, and I think, you know, it might be something that if, you know, we need to add to an agenda, if there's something that we want to put a cap on how much we're spending out of this, you know, establish it. It's always been kind of a gray area to me, and I know you brought it up every time we look at this fund. I would be up for, you know, having a discussion about what we are gonna do with it, if we're gonna cap, what, you know, where we're gonna go forward with it, but We always kind of move projects, what we talk about one day behind us and look at a vision down the road, different something else, so.
Sure.
I would agree with that.
A comment too on that. If you look at the general public, they're pretty sympathetic to our fire department and our police department. So when it comes to a bond, they're probably more likely to approve something like that than say our downtown project.
So if I may reiterate what I believe the direction is that we will move into design on these, we will get bids on the big ones, we'll come back to council if they're way out of line of what we've estimated here. We will fund the sinkhole and the pool liner out of the assigned building. That's what we're talking about right now is the assigned building fund. And if I may, we talked about shifting also the community center HVAC to that, and then some of these smaller ones we can pick off with our normal maintenance. And that's what I heard is the direction.
Sounds reasonable.
I agree. So just to make sure I understand, sorry, Klein?
No, you're fine. I just said yes, agreed.
Okay, how much are we actually, by doing what we just talked about, how much are we chipping away at our fund?
So it'll be this 215 plus that, plus this. So probably 1.1. I can't use the calculator on here because my batteries ran out.
But as you mentioned though, before committing, we would get the bid for it. There would be a second vote on moving forward with it.
On these
On
three, on the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
If you'd like me to bring them back, I can do that, yes.
I guess I was referring to replacing the pool liner and then,
The sinkhole.
and the sinkhole. What,
Yeah.
like, what is that cost gonna be?
and the
Oh, I'm sorry,
community
240
center.
for those two.
Okay, I was like, what?
I thought you meant the whole thing.
No.
240 for those, plus this 212 for the HVAC unit at the community center.
Yes, those three.
Okay,
So 400,000.
400,000.
Four-
And we have,
450.
how much again in the,
5 million, a
5
little bit
million.
over 5 million.
okay, thank you. I should write it down.
And then design on these.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I just wanna make sure I'm walking out here, knowing what I'm saying yes to.
I think I'll add in just one thing, a comment on Councilman Spiegelman. As we go out to these engineering firms, and if we go out in this, well, we're just kind of wanting to get a bid to kind of see if we're gonna be serious about this. I don't think we're gonna get great energy and really tight bids by engaged people. I think that they need to sense that their customer is really planning to go forward with this and take action, because they'll put in 200 hours, 150 hours into this process of putting a bid together for us on those big projects.
So, Director Grow, would you please repeat for my ears, starting at the very top at the community center,
Okay?
which one of these you're going to seek a design estimate for?
Yes, okay, so community center is done. We're going to pay for those out of the assigned building fund.
Okay.
The next one, the 267, the 193, and the 93, we are going to have a formal bid process to
Okay.
see what those come in at
For construction.
for design.
These are just estimates, okay.
These are estimates for design. We will fund the sinkhole at Station 4 out of the assigned building fund.
Okay,
We will also go out for design on the library roof, the service center cold mix shed, the community center exterior wall, the Carnegie HVAC unit, and then we will also purchase the Orchards pool liner. We also have to go out to bids for those, by the way, but we do have an estimate.
okay, then on the library, then I'm sure you'll follow up with Director Johnson to find out where she's at in that process.
Sure.
And I will too, but.
Which is a lot of, those items in themselves is a lot of work. at this time, I can't commit to when will I have these numbers to you, but we will certainly get going on this.
Does council agree? Everybody understands what we're doing? Councilor Klein?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, good. Also, just FYI, Councilor Spicklemeyer and I will be meeting this week with Boys and Girls Club just to talk about shared use of Fenton Gym and what's going on there. So we'll get a little bit better feel for what their needs are, maybe what our needs are, and see if there are any other options there for that gym. So,
Amy, do we need a vote on this? Are we good with the direction?
The minutes.
Okay. The other thing city could do is get formal bids for the roof of Fenton if you wanted us to. Like Councilor Klein said, you could do a bid.
yeah, I think we'll wait till maybe Councilor Spicklemeyer and I can just have a quick visit with
Sure.
Mr. Evans.
Yeah, that's fine. We can bring this stuff back.
Yeah, my only concern with doing that, I mean, I get we could just get a bit, but I also do agree with Fire Chief that, right, Meyer, that if we don't really, if we're not that serious about it, we might not get them to really care back. So if at Fenton Gym, we're kind of like on the edge of if we want to do this or not. I don't know if going to bid's the best choice yet, unless we're more serious about it. It was what my thought was.
Councilor Klein, are you okay if Councilor Spicklemeyer and I meet with the Boys and Girls Club this week to just kind of better understand what their needs are and how much money we throw at this?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, my thinking was just like, even if we don't take the bid and we end up selling Fenton Gym to someone, they're still gonna need to have it fixed, because it's gonna be hard to sell it like that, and it's just getting worse, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we made it.
Thank you.
I have a general question.
Councilor Spickmeyer?
Director Grove. This, last year, we approached this at about the same speed. I know you just inherited this. So my question is there a reason why this isn't part of our budget discussions? I mean, we're already starting the second quarter and we haven't, turned the shovel.
Yes. The only thing I can say is that I inherited this. So you're probably see things done differently moving forward.
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman?
this is a question kind of for you, Mayor. Would it be good to have a future discussion about if we want to get an engineer on staff, as Director Groh was saying, or are we wanting to kind of table that thought? Because I definitely would like to start taking action to how to start having these on a list of, so we can do better in the future about this, so that doesn't happen again.
Well, Councilor, there's probably two ways to go about this. One of them is, in very simple terms, for me to include it in my budget this next year. The other one is to have you include it in your budget. Those are the two short answers. In the meantime, I will need more time to discuss this with Director Groh and Director Johnson and Director Gordon to talk about the monies and, where this position would fit. Would it fit within community development? Would it fit within public works? Those kind of things. So I would just need to firm that up a little bit. We've discussed it briefly, or maybe we'll put them over at the fire department, heck, who knows? They got room over there.
They'll have some project work to do.
So we've had some of these discussions, at the surface level over the last few months. So it's kind of a new item. The same thing happens when we let a contract for some of our major public works construction projects. And you'll see the next time we meet, you'll see Director Johnson or somebody come back before you to make a change order to a project. And that change order might be to hire somebody to do contract administration on that project. And I always ask the question, why can't we do the administration? Why can't one of our engineers do the administration instead of always paying those additional dollars? And there's different reasons for that. One of them sometimes has been, and I support it, is we just don't have the manpower, the hours on that project to do that. So we have to hire for that expertise. There may be some other times where we can do it, but quite honestly, I have to take the lead of Director Johnson on those types of projects and his staff when it may or may not be appropriate to do that. But it's the same kind of question. Okay, if you add it up at the end of the year, we paid somebody to administer contracts, $500,000 this year. Wouldn't it have been cheaper to just have somebody on staff? Well, it might be in some years we make money and other years we lose money. I don't know. So, but those are the kind of questions we should be asking ourselves all the time, and we do ask it. So I don't have a final answer for you, but it has been discussed.
Would we be able to have it come back up when we get more data so we can, as a council, kind of maybe before budget decide if that's something we want to do?
Yeah, why don't you come talk to me? And I can give you an update. I don't have an answer for you on that. But, a couple of things like,
It's okay, I can ping you later.
you see on the list here, like with the cold mix shed service center. Out at the, service center where we have our cold mix, and it looks like we're gonna have to redo that. And of course, in my simple mind, can't we just do it? I'm sorry, my son keeps calling me here. I will call him back in a minute. I wonder why he's calling me. Could be because it's my birthday today.
Oh, Mayor, happy birthday.
I will call him back in a minute. So, good questions to ask. I just don't have a good answer for you right now.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did we make it? Thank you, Director Gordon.
Thank you.
Chief
Thank
Blair.
you.
Next up, item 5, unfinished and new business. Item A, city councilor comments.
Well, I feel like we tracked at least a plan forward, so that feels good. Hopefully we can start going through and making some, checking some stuff off this list and making some action plans. So I look forward to future discussions and upcoming budget. So I appreciate the councils and their time, and it was a good discussion. I feel good walking out today that we made some good movement. Oh, and Director Graham, thank you for all the work. You majority, I was just asking questions, so appreciate everything you do and the staff. You guys are always up the ball and always give us what we need, so appreciate it.
Councilor, Councilor Wright.
Yeah, so this past week and into next week, I've been meeting with the various heads of departments, and it's been a great experience. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody here working for the city that took the time to teach me about what they do every day. And it'll really help me out in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
No, she's still there. I think so.
Are you there?
Mayor?
Councilor?
I was wondering if everybody wanted to sing the mayor happy birthday today.
Yeah, about to say that.
Yeah, thank you.
Ready? On the count of 3?
No, don't do that.
What? Come on. Clyde, start us out.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Mayor Johnson.
Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a good day. I am now, I guess, eligible for Medicare, right, at 65?
Hey, call my
Oh,
husband.
yeah, I've been on that for a while.
Yeah.
I'll give you my husband's card before you leave
Yeah.
here.
It's funny when your parents who are in their 90s call you and wish you happy birthday, and I'm thinking, I'm 65, Mom, Dad, but you'll always be their child, you know?
Yep.
No
So,
matter how old.
but thank you, everyone. It's been a good day. And I have a good night planned with Fazari's Pizza, so,
Ooh, yummy.
yeah.
Get some ice cream afterwards.
Item B, city boards, commission liaison updates at all? Any updates?
I have some stuff at the airport.
Counselor, go ahead, please.
Chad Engel was elected to the board. He seemed like a pretty good choice, out of Asotin. And he's retired from the UPS, and he's worked a lot with the airport itself, and, worked in like 26 different states. And Joe and Hannah are currently working on getting a bill for the state to assist with future MRGs. That's what New Mexico was able to do and how they were able to get the United flight. And so they kind of copied that one and brought it to Boise. And the parking lot this year, made $260,000 in revenue, which was, way exceeding what they expected. So they had a good year there.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mhm.
So, Mayor, comments, I can tell you that I've continued to meet with our board and commission applicants, and that's really been fun for me. I've learned a lot about them and the work that they're doing. And it gives them an opportunity to ask me questions, maybe what some of my thoughts are, especially on budget, things like that, but also what the council is doing. So I've really enjoyed that. Several kind of meetings coming up this week, just FYI. Wednesday night at the library is a meeting on the Bureau of Reclamation's Department of Interior's proposal. They have a water replacement study going, so that might be interesting because it certainly includes the city of Lewiston. I plan to attend. It starts at 4 at the library and goes into the evening. But that should be interesting to hear what some of their thoughts are on that. I'll share that with you. And why don't I stop there? I have other things here, but I can wait on those. Agenda topics, item G. Any agenda topics upcoming? No? Okay, Roman numeral 6, adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Spickemeyer, I think, to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.